Voting Keir Starmer, the UK Premier.
Yes, he's coming tonight.
What do you think of him? Some of his colleagues in government are quite critical of you.
Well, I'm going to see him in about an hour, so I have to be nice, right?
Just a number of issues of global significance. It was a very constructive exercise.
Keir Starmer's European tour was supposed to be his moment to shine on the world stage. Instead, it turned into a humiliating disaster that left his political career in tatters. Before we move on, I'd like to ask you a small favor. If you appreciate this content, please take a second to like this video and subscribe to the channel. Over 98% of you watch the videos without subscribing. It costs you nothing, but it makes a huge difference to us. So, did you click the subscribe button? Great, thank you so much. Now, back to the video. From being snubbed by Donald Trump to fumbling through embarrassing media appearances, Starmer's fall from grace was captured for all to see. But what exactly went wrong, and can he ever recover? Keir Starmer set off on his European tour with grand ambitions. He confidently declared his intent to rebuild the special relationship with the United States, aiming to position himself as a heavyweight on the international stage. The Labour leader envisioned a series of high-profile meetings and photo opportunities that would bolster his image back home. But reality had other plans. As Starmer touched down in Europe, it quickly became apparent that his presence wasn't causing the stir he'd hoped for. The most glaring example of his diminished status came during a significant event in France. While world leaders gathered for the reopening of Notre Dame Cathedral, Starmer found himself on the outside looking in. Neither Washington nor Paris deemed it necessary to extend an invitation to the British opposition leader. The snub by Donald Trump was particularly stinging. As the former US president made his appearance at the cathedral, Starmer was nowhere to be seen.
Voting Keir Starmer, the UK Premier.
Yes, he's coming tonight.
What do you think of him? Some of his colleagues in government are quite critical of you.
Well, I'm going to see him in about an hour, so I have to be nice, right?
The Secretary and I did meet President-elect Trump just a few weeks ago for dinner for about a couple of hours, and we
This exclusion spoke volumes about his standing in international circles. Niall Gardner, a former advisor, didn't mince words when he described how Starmer is perceived in Washington: weak and woke. It's a damning assessment that underscores the Labour leader's struggle to gain traction on the global stage. Desperate to salvage something from the trip, Starmer resorted to making public statements about international cooperation and global challenges. But these efforts rang hollow in the face of his exclusion from key diplomatic events. His attempts to project relevance only served to highlight how far removed he was from the real centers of power and influence. The consequences of this disastrous tour are far-reaching. Starmer's credibility on the international stage lies in tatters. Political experts warn that his failure to secure important diplomatic engagements could have long-lasting implications for both his leadership and the Labour Party's standing. The trip that was meant to elevate Starmer's profile has instead raised serious questions about his ability to represent British interests on the world stage. As Starmer returned home, he faced a media landscape primed for blood. The European tour fiasco had set the stage for an even more brutal confrontation with the press. Little did he know, his struggles were far from over. The real test of his leadership was about to begin in front of the unforgiving glare of the British media. Starmer's European tour disaster was just the appetizer. The main course of humiliation was waiting for him back home, served up by 6 relentless BBC radio hosts. In just 45 excruciating minutes, the Labour leader's carefully crafted image would crumble. What burning questions left Starmer fumbling for answers? As Keir Starmer touched down on British soil, the pressure was mounting. The media circus was in full swing, eager to dissect his every word and gesture. The expectation was clear. Starmer needed to explain his policies, defend his leadership, and prove he wasn't just another political lightweight. But what unfolded during a grueling 45-minute media round with 6 local BBC radio stations was nothing short of a disaster. Starmer struggled to articulate coherent answers to even the most basic questions. When pressed about the winter fuel allowance cuts, he found himself on the back foot. One host accused him of picking a fight with pensioners, after Starmer admitted he had never personally struggled to pay utility bills, a tone-deaf response that alienated many listeners grappling with the cost of living crisis.
Who are you with? Who are you with?
GB News in the UK.
Okay, good.
But would you rather Nigel Farage would have had a bigger role?
Well, I think Nigel is great. I mean, I've known him for a long time. He had a great election, too. Picked up
Just a number of issues of global significance. It was a very constructive exercise.
But I actually think he's very nice. I think he ran a great race. He did very well.
Starmer's attempts to change the subject fell flat. When he tried to discuss the reintroduction of ASBOs, interviewers quickly shut him down, pointing out his failure to stay on topic. It was a stark demonstration of his inability to control the narrative or articulate clear policy positions. The awkward moments kept coming. A BBC Lincolnshire host confronted Starmer about his perceived disconnect with local farmers, asking if he had a problem with Lincolnshire. Starmer's fumbling response did little to assuage concerns that he was out of touch with rural communities. Social media exploded with reactions, and they were overwhelmingly negative. Users mocked Starmer's inability to provide coherent answers, with many labeling his performance as deeply embarrassing. Political commentators were equally unforgiving, noting that Starmer's communication style lacked clarity and effectiveness. As the dust settled on this media meltdown, the implications for Starmer's leadership became clear. Public trust, already shaken by his European tour fiasco, eroded further. Critics questioned his ability to lead the Labour Party effectively, suggesting that his struggles in articulating policy could have long-term consequences for his political future. The shocking public humiliation Keir Starmer faced was not just a series of awkward interviews, but a complete unraveling of his political persona on live radio. In less than an hour, he went from aspiring statesman to a leader struggling to defend his own policies and connect with voters. The question now hanging over British politics is whether Starmer can recover from this double blow to his credibility, or if his days as Labour leader are numbered. Keir Starmer's recent European tour and media appearances have dealt a severe blow to his leadership credibility. The cumulative effect of being sidelined on the international stage and fumbling through basic policy questions has left his political future hanging by a thread. Starmer's inability to articulate a clear vision for Labour or connect with voters raises serious questions about his fitness to lead the party into the next general election. The challenges facing Starmer and Labour are immense. They must not only rebuild public trust, but also present a compelling alternative to the current government. Starmer's performance has exposed deep-rooted issues within the party, from policy inconsistencies to a disconnect with traditional Labour strongholds. Can Starmer salvage his leadership and steer Labour back to relevance? Or will these setbacks prove to be the final nail in the coffin for his political ambitions? The coming months will be crucial in determining whether Starmer can adapt and regain lost ground, or if Labour will be forced to seek new leadership to have any hope of electoral success.